In this video, we are going to talk about React state management and my favorite way to do it, which is using MobX React Lights, use local observables. We're going to take this flat app that we have right here. We're going to actually give it some state and turn it into a real app very, very quickly. Here's my 2 cents, by the way, on state management. If you have a very simple app or a single component that has state that only affects that component, use React, use state, unless that state starts getting a little complex even for one component. Pretty much any other use case, use MobX React Lights, use local observable hook. You're going to save yourself a ton of time. You're going to enjoy your life a lot better. It's easier to test. It's easier for everything. If you do have an app with extraordinary complexity, Redux might be something you want to move to, maybe. This can handle a lot of complexity, but usually, if you need Redux, what you should probably ask yourself first is, can I break this app up into micro apps within one app that all manage a much simpler state, much simpler event structures that then persist to a backend or persist to local storage or something. So that way I have basically a bunch of micro apps that are much easier to work on. I think the days of having this enormous monolithic front-end React app with super complex state and event sequences, most of the time that's just not necessary, and it's a bad design pattern. It's kind of a little bit more of a smell. There are use cases where you need enormous complexity, but lots of the time you can carve out individual micro front ends within your one big front end. So off of that soapbox, let's get into having some fun. Let's turn this thing into an actual app. So to use local observable, you basically are going to import 2 things. You're going to import observer from MobX React Lite, and you're also going to import use local observable. Now that I've got those in, all I do is I wrap my actual function with observer. After export default, we wrap the function in observer, come all the way down here, add my closing parens, and then you can use the use local observable hook. So now we have to-do store. To-do store is an observable object. So anytime anything inside of it changes, our component is going to re-render as long as it is wrapped in observer. This is the #1 thing that people make a mistake of if they start using MobX, is that if you're not wrapped in observer, your component is not going to change even when you change these values. So let's say I could make a test value here and a test method to change that value. So there we go. I've added a name of Will, and then anytime I run this change name function, it will actually set it. And that's all it takes. So let's actually make use of this in a little test here. All right, so I've gone ahead and clicked this, and I've reloaded my page over here. And so now I am spitting out the to-do store name. And if I click the button, definitely not Will. And then of course I click it over and over and over again, and it's always going to change it to the exact same thing. But that's as complex as it is. You set values in your local observable object. And then anytime you want an action, what would be considered an action that changes the data, just add a method on that object. This method could do a set timeout. It could load asynchronous data. It doesn't really matter. It functions just like standard JavaScript. And whenever this method mutates a value on the object, your component's going to re-render, whether it mutates it now or whether it mutates it 3 seconds from now. Now you can see that I've added a set timeout to it. So if I click this, it's going to definitely not Will. And then in 3 seconds, it's going to some hard-coded name. It just works. It just works all the time. You don't have to worry about any creepy stale closures or anything like that that you oftentimes run into when you're using use state in React. So let's go ahead and actually figure out how we're going to connect this to our to-do store app and have some fun. We probably should make a to-dos array. Now this is going to by default be an observable array. Observable arrays are exactly like normal arrays in terms of how they function, although MobX does give you 3 very cool methods on it. They give you .clear, remove. That's very, very useful. I can remove 1 item from there. And they also give you .replace, which allows you to replace that with an entire new array. Besides that, they are completely normal arrays. So let's go ahead and create a really quick delete to-do method. There you go. That's all we're going to have to do to actually remove a to-do from the array. If we are passed a to-do, we can say, hey, remove this object, which will be an object in there. Let's go and create some first few objects and then wire this hard-coded data up to those actual objects. There we go. I made my first one. We're going to need some sort of ID, so that way they can have a unique key in React. A title, whether or not they're pinned. You can see we got some pinned items here, which is, I guess, the star. Is favorited, could be also something else we call it. Is complete. That'll give it a little scratch out. And then is editing is false. If we click on it, then we're going to change it to is editing and show an input box instead of a span field. And then if we delete it, then it's just going to trash it. It's going to remove it from the to-dos array. So we don't need an is deleted. Let's go ahead now and wire some of these up here. All right, what we've done is we're mapping the to-dos out here and we're spitting out the title, and we're also going to spit out some buttons that just have emojis in them, and they're going to fire these three methods: toggle complete, delete to-do, and toggle pin. Now we've already created delete to-do. Let's see if that works. Ta-da, yep, it goes away. Nice. So then if I refresh, that's going to come back. Let's go ahead and add a toggle complete method and a toggle pin method, which will be stupid simple. Yeah, if it's, we're just going to say, hey, is complete is the opposite of whatever is complete is right now. And we'll do the same thing for pin. And now check this out. This is a very important thing. So I've saved my file. This hot loading has happened over here. And if I check right here, toggle complete, I'm actually going to get an error. Hey, toggle complete is not a function. Well, clearly it is. I added it over here on the left. Why is that the case? If the concept of hot reloading versus live reloading is new to you, what just happened is my component code down here hot reloaded, but my state of my application did not reload. And that is a very, very good thing. Let's say I'm coding and I click 30 things to get my UI into a specific state I want it, right? I've clicked 30 things, which mutated this store 30 different ways. And now I've got my state, and I just want to come down here, and all I want to do is add an exclamation to the title, right? Well, that should happen, but I shouldn't have to re-click the 30 things to get the state in some complex state in order to view my exclamation mark. So what hot reloading does is on file changes, your React markup will reload, but your store will not reload until you refresh. So I've got the old store that did not have these two methods in it. That is what right now is in memory over here, and any state changes that I've made. So if I ever change the store, I have to refresh the browser to get that. That's a good thing. What it means is that if I trash this, okay, now I have state, right? My to-do store has the to-do deleted, and I can go ahead and delete this title. I can do a bunch of things, and you notice my to-do is still gone because I've deleted it. So if I want that to-do back, I just reload, and then I've got my new store done. So that's what hot reloading is. A lot of people forget about the differences between live reloading and hot reloading. Live reloading would just refresh the page when a file change happens, but that does not happen here. When a file change happens, really only this code changes, or should I say everything that is not in this hook changes. So that's important as you're working with MobX. You're going to get a lot of those if you're not aware of what's going on. So I've toggled my complete here. I should be able to do this. Yep, it's toggling, but we're not noticing it because what I have to do is I have to create a complete class. I have two CSS classes here, one called complete. Complete is going to strike through. It's just a visual thing. And then I also have pinned, and pinned is going to make it look dark. Pinned should always be at the top, and they should have that pinned class. So what I need to do is now make this class name dynamic. If my to-do is complete, then we're going to strike through. Yes, we're good to go. Awesome. And then later on, I can add that pinned as well if we're pinned. So in order to do that, I'm going to filter out my to-dos list using some helper methods, some computed functions. I can use a getter here. And I can only return the to-dos that are pinned. And then I'm also going to make a getter function for unpinned to-dos. And then instead of mapping all the to-dos, I'm going to map the pinned to-dos. And then later down here, I'm going to map the unpinned to-dos. I should make this all reusable code, but I'm going to be lazy for the sake of this video. Forget about it. So now the pinned to-dos are going to map up top. The unpinned to-dos are going to map down below. You can see I've got that same error. Unpinned to-dos, it doesn't know anything about it. If I refresh my page, it knows about it now. And then I'm going to make sure my pinned to-dos always have a pinned class. Now I should be able to, yes, pin it, unpin it, sweet. And if I add a new one, let's do a create button. That's going to be super easy to do. Create, on click. Okay, the create function is super easy. We're just going to push something onto the array, and it's going to have a title. It's going to have that it's pinned false, complete false, but it's going to be editing true, so that's fun. We're going to get to add our editing here. So now I should be able to create. Yippee, I can create a whole bunch of them. And let's go ahead and say that if our title, or if we are editing, that we don't show a span, we show an input instead. Okay, I've gone ahead and added input. So if we are editing, we're showing input. The value's going to be the title. On change, we're going to call an update title method. On blur, we're going to toggle the editing to be off. So let's go ahead and add those two new methods. There we go. And I'm also going to add the click event to just the span mode. So if you're not editing and you click on the span, then we're going to kick into editing mode. Okay, now we should be able to kick anything into edit mode. Yes, we can. And we've got our name there. And if we click away, we are updating our name. Yippee, that is complete. So now we can click, we can undo, we can pin, we can create some more things. Test 45, wow, nice big leap there. Let's pin some of these, let's unpin some of these, let's trash this, and I think our app is done. It was just a few minutes. Using use local observables is a ton of fun. So where do we go from here, right? This thing's getting pretty big. We could abstract this out in a really cool way here, as it is just a plain JavaScript object. We can import this. Let's go ahead and create a stores folder in our project. And let's create a to-dos store. I'm going to capitalize it because it is not an instance. It is something an instance is made for. There you go. I've just copied all of my logic. And check this out. For testing, if we want to test our logic, oh, how simple will this be? It is literally just a plain JavaScript object. That's all it is. Now let's go back over here. Now we're going to import to-do store, and everything should still work just fine. Yep, everything still works just fine. Nothing's wrong. Also, if we want to now test our UI, think how simple this will be. We can inject any prefabricated state of the to-do store, right? We can inject something that has 30 to-dos. We can inject something that has no to-dos. We can do whatever we want to do, and we should expect that our UI will behave a certain way based on this thing right here being injected. Super cool. It makes it really easy to test your logic versus your display layer just effortlessly. Really, this is the pattern that people should be using. Another thing that you can do is you can go over to your app layer. Let's go to my app.js, which is Next.js. Assuming you have some top level app component, you could create a store right here. You could create an app store, use local observable. Then you could pass that through with the React context. So then I have this like app store context that is getting passed down through my entire application. And then I can come over here and I can use context. And I can pass in the App Store context. If you don't understand how to do use context, go ahead and look at the React documentations for use context. And now I can modify App Store just like I could anywhere else. I could have 30 stores that are available on the app level and pull those in with context whenever I need them and whenever I don't. It keeps the testing of things very simple. It allows this thing to be tested based on any app state, on any to-do state. It just makes your life happy. And as you can see, in just a couple minutes, we were able to build out this to-do app. So that's use local observable. That's why it's my default. It just makes your life happy and simple. I encourage you guys to go test it out, try it on some applications. You don't have to overhaul your entire application to use it in just a few places. It's a great tool. It's what I encourage people to use as their default state management for React.